Fred Bear once said, "Immerse yourself in the outdoor experience. It will cleanse your soul and make you a better person." Welcome to the Rooted Outdoors podcast, where we dive deep into the mental, emotional, and spiritual side of hunting. And now your hosts, Dave Ashworth and Corey Bauman.
Welcome to the Rooted Outdoors podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Corey Bauman. I'm with my awesome friend, Dave Ashworth, and this awesome dude below us, you're going to meet here in a second. But Dave, dude, what's new in your life, man?
Man, not too much right now. It's, again, hunting wise, it's kind of that weird season of things where it's postseason. You could be doing a little scouting, kind of slowly working our way into turkey season here. But not other than that, not too much going on.
It's kind of like the limbo, right? Like getting cranked up.
It
The
is.
weather's starting to change a little bit.
That's
I don't know
right.
what it's like in Pennsylvania, but it's like all over the board here. It was
Same.
32 this morning. Well, it was 32 yesterday morning, and then 75 in the afternoon when we were out training. I was in shorts and t-shirt. So
Yeah, it's weird. You guys are weird.
I know. I don't got a ton going on. I did. So my family's away. They're in Pennsylvania this week. So I've had kind of the whole house to myself, which is kind of weird and lonely at times, but they're coming back Sunday. So they're visiting family.
Yeah.
But I've had some time to work on the boat. I didn't even tell our guest yet that I bought a boat. I bought a fixer-upper boat. So we're going to talk maybe a little bit about it tonight, but putting a little bit of work and making sure the thing doesn't leak first, and then
That's important.
Who knows what we'll make of it, but
I don't know anything about boats, but I could tell you don't want it to leak. I
No,
can tell you that. So
that's rule number
if you
one.
can get that, I think you're going in the good direction.
Yeah. So things are good. We're just busy at work,
Good.
but excited for turkey season. Also, finally, maybe I can get on a turkey here in Texas. Oh my gosh,
Let's go, man. Let's go.
It's been a joke.
Yeah.
So
I do have one thing. So in about a month, our buddy Dylan and I and my dad are going to my parents' cabin for the weekend to get the food plot in year 2, keep it going, which I'm excited about. I've never really done that before. So we kind of did it last year. It was just like a 1.5 day thing that we did. But now we're really putting more of a plan in place, and Dylan started his own seed company. So he's got we're going to use some of his seed and then test it in a couple places, and just that whole process. Like if you've never been a part of that process, even if you just go and do it with somebody, like working on the land and like making a plan is like, it's the coolest thing. It is so cool. So I'm really excited about that weekend and kind of seeing this thing that we've been working on take it to the next level. So
I'm excited for you because that's cool. I know you've had a cabin for a long time, but haven't really done anything with it. So that's cool. All right, dude, let's jump into our guest. So our guest tonight, who I've gotten to know over the last, I feel like over a year now. Well, it's almost over a year probably, is Josh Parvin, and he's co-owner of Cornerstone Gundog Academy. And so when I decided to get a dog, was kind of directed to Cornerstone Gundog, and then got to know Josh Parvin really well, I think, over the last year or so. And he's an avid outdoorsman. He's also a family man. I know he recently had a little girl, so congrats on that. And
Thank you.
He's spent 10 years training dogs, and I've spent the last, not even a year probably training. And it's definitely a challenge, but Josh, man, we're glad to have you with us tonight. I'm glad to jump into that and the rest of your hunting journeys and your history. And so welcome, man.
Well, thank you for having me on. And definitely the last year's been great getting to know you and Charlie. Going through the trials and tribulations of developing that great dog that you're proud of. And Charlie's one of a kind, and man, you've done a great job. But it's just been, just to say this before we go any further, a pleasure and an honor to get to meet with you, especially since you're one of our customers. You're I don't even consider our customers. It's more like a family, but just getting to know you has been pretty awesome. And we're proud of you. I can tell you that we're very proud of you.
I appreciate that, man. And I think, and you get to meet Charlie in a couple weeks, finally.
I'm so excited about that.
Dude, and he's one of a
kind.
Quick. He's one of a kind. It was funny because I was telling my wife the other night, she's like, how many other Goldens do you think there'll be there? And I'm like, probably not many. Probably a lot of black labs, but no, but like
definitely a lot of labs.
He is definitely one of a kind, like his personality and everything, man. He's definitely one of a kind. So I'm anxious for him to get around some of their dogs and meet, and you get a chance to meet him. So it's cool, man.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So what, so I know obviously you're a duck hunter. I know you've trained dogs, but we haven't really ever talked about, your kind of hunting. Like, how did you get started hunting? Was it deer hunting? Like, tell me a little bit about kind of who's Josh? How did Josh get into hunting? And tell me a little bit about that journey.
Absolutely. So that all started, I honestly don't even know how old I was. Barely, I couldn't even see over the shooting house. I was probably 4 years old. Maybe my dad just took me out there with him. So I live in Alabama, just for a little context here. So the big thing around Alabama is fishing, deer hunting, and turkey hunting. That's kind of the big thing that everybody does. So for my dad, he was kind of big into the deer hunting scene. So that was he always went hunting. And so I can vaguely remember just wanting to go with him and then seeing him come home from a hunt and then finally getting to go for the first time, and just the whole experience just being incredible. So my uncle, he hunted as well. So they were hunting, and my cousin, he was getting into it. So he was a couple of years younger than me. We were all getting into it about the same time. And it was just going out to the hunting club. That's kind of what we did. On the weekends, we would go, we would ride the ATVs around. Honestly, may have been one of my favorite parts at that age, just because I wasn't even really old enough to actually hunt yet or to kill a deer myself. But so I kind of got hooked on the outdoors from an early age, just right away. It was really great. I remember walking with my dad and just enjoying life. We were out there walking through the woods. He's teaching me things and I'm learning from all that he's showing me. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. I mean, those moments definitely are special to me. And I'm very thankful for them, just because that's imprinted a lot in my life and kind of just taught me to be who I was, just being in the outdoors from an early age. But definitely avid outdoorsman. From there, whenever I wasn't able to deer hunt or it wasn't deer season, I got my first BB gun, and every day before school, I'd wake up at daylight. I would go sit on the back porch and I would try to kill birds or whatever I could get after. I probably wasn't hitting anything, but I was sitting there just shooting across the backyard. And then one day I finally got upgraded to a pellet gun. And so every day when I get home from school, I would go out. We had a decent plot of land back behind us with quite a few hardwoods. And I would just go out there with my dog. We would walk around and I would just sit out there, hang out, hunt. I would build fires and just do anything that a young dude would do, or at least the young man aspiring to be a man would do. And so, yeah, I've spent a lot of my life in the outdoors. So that's kind of the early roots of it. That's what got me into the outdoors, and honestly got me pretty hooked on it. And also from some other experiences, my dad was big into dogs, beagles. He would run beagles for rabbit hunting. So we had a mess load of beagles, and that was, anything outdoors that I could get involved in, I wanted to do. So whenever he was doing that, I was all in with him, and we did it all we could do.
Dude, that's awesome. Beagles, huh? So I had one of my dad's friends when I was growing up raised beagles, and he lived on a big farm in Pennsylvania, and we'd go there and he would let us deer hunt and stuff. And I just remember walking in that barn and hearing those beagles. Just carrying on, like, he always had puppies too. So it was like, man, they're loud, those beagles.
Yeah. That's actually a really funny story. Beagles. So the land behind us was woods, but we actually lived on the corner of a cul-de-sac of a neighborhood. So my dad rigged up he had this whole idea. We basically put a concrete slab down there, and then we put some outdoor kennels out there, but he rigged up a system to where we created a spray system, and it was based off sound. So if a beagle started howling, the water was hooked up to it and it would instantly spray all the beagles. So no one even knew, and we had it all like hidden in there pretty good. Just had nice bushes. No one really, hardly, or for the most part, no one knew. That's a whole nother story there. Ended up, we had to make some changes, but we got away with it for quite a while. And Yeah. The beagles that we had would howl, but with the water system, they kept pretty quiet.
That's great. That's a great tip. I won't tell anybody.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Man, I have a funny story actually. A couple years ago, so we have it's miles back, but where we live, there's all these horse farms, and a lot of them, the people ride horses and then hunt. I guess it's fox. I don't know. Maybe it's rabbits. I don't know. But they run beagles, and so I'm in a neighborhood like I'm not near these farms at all. And I was outside the one day and I heard like all this barking, and I was like, man, that is a lot of dogs, right? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
And it kept getting louder and louder. All of a sudden, all these beagles came ripping through my backyard. I mean, there must have been 100 of them, and they just came coming and coming. I'm just sitting here. I'm like, am I dreaming right now? Like, what is going on? And then I finally put it together that they must have been on something and from over in those farms. But that was crazy, man. That was like the last thing I would expect living where I live, like in a neighborhood, and having these dogs just come ripping through. But it was cool. It was really cool to see.
That is funny, man. Beagles are funny dogs. Yeah, my grandparents had a beagle for a long time too, and I used to always howl. I remember it howling in the back room. They'd keep it in the back room while we ate dinner, and it would howl. Oh man, where do we take this from now? From beagles to
I have no idea. No idea. I could jump in here. So obviously your roots sounded and based on what you were talking about was some deer hunting, and then you obviously did some with the beagles and rabbit hunting. But where you're at today, you're training dogs for I don't know everything about what you guys do. I mean, what Corey told me, but it's a lot of waterfowl hunting. And so how did you kind of get to that point? What was the progression from like a deer hunter, and everybody deer hunted and turkey hunted in an area, to kind of getting into dog training? And I'm guessing you had some interest in waterfowl hunting yourself as well. So how did that progression kind of take place?
Yeah, so that progression really kind of took place when I was a little bit older. So as I grew older, I was able to hunt on my own. So we were deer hunting. Dad, not really the deal for us was the deer hunting was a way for us to connect. And, as I got old enough, I'm like, well, I kind of want to kill my own deer, and you want to kill your own deer. If we're both in the same shooting house, we're going to have a hard time both killing a deer. So we started getting in a different stand, different shooting house, and that was great. But then it kind of started to lose its luster a bit for us, because I mean, we're both sitting out there and just in total solitude away from each other. And all you can do is send each other a text, or I guess over the radio. In fact, that's kind of how we communicate. We had one of those little two-way radios that would go a little while. Then we finally had cell phones and texting and all that. So we kind of transitioned from there. My dad had been getting invites from his buddies at church to go duck hunting. And they kept inviting us. And, as a deer hunter, we're sitting there thinking, we had seen all the cool duck commander commercials of those dudes sitting in there in the like freezing looking water. And we're sitting there thinking, what is wrong with these people? They're probably freezing. And it's just, there's no way that it can be fun to go shoot a couple of birds out of the sky. I mean, we've been dove hunting, we know what that's like. At least that was our perspective at the time. And then they finally convinced him to go. So we went on this huge trip. It was actually a good bit of people from the church. I think there was 18 of us. We got in this huge blind out in Dyersburg, Tennessee. It was awesome. So we get out there and we roll up. We're in an ATV. So we roll up, we can't even see anything. And then they stop and they say, all right, we're here, unload your gear. And like, we can't see a thing. And all of a sudden, like this light comes out of this bush, and we're like, what is that? And we realize the door is open. So we walk in and we're like, okay, this is kind of cool. There's a bunch of shooting holes there. And then all of a sudden a bigger door slides open in the back. And then in the back of this blind, there's this huge kitchen. There's everything. I mean, TV, you can just go sit down and hang out. I'm like, this is not deer hunting.
No.
This is, I was already feeling pretty good about it. So they already had us breakfast made. So we sit down after our guns were put where they're supposed to be. We eat breakfast, and then we get in the blind there, and they say, all right, it's shooting time. So we walk out, and all of a sudden this guide, I mean, he is, I think if I'm not mistaken, he was actually game warden too, but he could call these ducks in like nothing you would ever believe. He just started hammering away with that call, and I'm looking up, I'm just taking it all in, and all of a sudden like ducks just start pouring in, and we're we start shooting and 18 guns are shooting, ducks are leaving, not very good shots, but we were hooked, and, we wounded so many birds that day. But we actually got, I think, most of those birds back because there was a guy with a dog at the end of the blind. This guy clearly knew, hey, we're going to have all these newbies here. We're going to have a dog or we're not going to get anything back. So we watched this dog multiple times go across this field, probably 300-400 yards across. And that's probably that dog's natural distance because it knows that it's getting people that can't shoot, and barely hit a duck, and it just goes sailing out there. And it retrieved multiple birds that far. So for me, it was what captivated me by waterfowling from the beginning was the whole experience. It was totally different. So Dad and I mean, we're sitting there talking the whole entire time. It kind of got us back to the roots of why we deer hunted, because we're connecting. And that was what it was about for us. And so I remember we talked, it wasn't too far away. It was about a 6.5 hour drive home. And we talked the whole entire way back, did not stop. We were so excited. I mean, that was the end of duck season too. So we can go back until the next year. And so, I mean, we were burning to go, and like we decided right then and there, hey, we're going to get into this duck hunting thing full throttle. I believe within not too long, Dad already, he ended up purchasing a boat. We got us our own boat so that we could go get out there and hunting. And then we had the guns, and then I think we pretty much decided to go ahead and get a dog right then and there. It was like, hey, we're going to go all in. Yeah. And so that's the start of that story. But that really leads us kind of into the dog deal. But that's what got me into the waterfowl hunting and the idea of it. And that's really what led us to the labs was, hey, I need a dog to hunt, and I have a passion for this. I absolutely love it.
So, man, thanks. That connects the dots. I think I've heard part of that story before, but I've never heard the whole thing. So that's really cool, man. One of the things that we're trying to focus on with our podcast is like the mental aspect of things. It's funny because I feel like I'm going to ask you questions that you ask folks on your podcast, that I listen to all the time. Right. But like, so you get that first dog, and it was your dad's dog?
Yeah. Both of our dog.
Gotcha.
Both of ours.
Sure.
So beautiful black lab.
Awesome. So did you guys train that first dog, or did you send it away? Like, tell me, like, how did you get to the point where you go, you know what, I want to train a dog. Like, I want to be the person that's training this dog.
Well, that actually is a great story. So I remember when we had got this dog, we're sitting there looking. This was actually a British lab. Our first dog was a British lab. We we didn't do things right, as you'd say. We actually bought our first British lab at Bass Pro. The guy was selling dogs at Bass Pro.
That's so good.
So we're probably in there going to buy a duck call or something because we're just so hooked on this. And we walk out and the guy actually at the kennel was a great guy that we bought our first dog from, and a really, really nice guy. And he had some really nice dogs actually. But we bought our first dog at Bass Pro. Back then, the price of labs, it skyrocketed. It was a lot less back in the day. It was still, I mean, the dog we bought was not cheap by any means. But we bought our first dog there. And I mean, this was a beautiful dog. So we did what we thought everybody was supposed to do. We sent it off to a trainer to begin with. This is actually how we got all into it. So we found a trainer. We sent our first dog off to the trainer. It was our buddy there for a few months, and everybody was so sad. The whole family's sad because we're taking the dog off to duck camp, to boot camp. It's going to go learn how to be a duck dog for 4 months. And so we dropped it off, and that was that. So we come back and we got to visit it halfway through, and everything looked okay and all that. And then we come back to get the dog, and things weren't exactly what we wanted, to say the least. The dog, well, here's the key word. The trainer just said, don't you ever put an e-collar on this dog. Cause that's our first question. We're like, okay. Cause that's what people do. You go get an e-collar, you do all these things. That's just, at least that was the perspective that we had at the time back in the day when we were doing this. And that should have been our first clue that things kind of went a little haywire there, is that, in other words, he's saying, hey, I've done this. You probably don't want to do it because this dog can't handle it. And so when we went to pick him up, he wasn't the same dog. He just kind of was a lot more reserved, and I wouldn't say skittish, but just he wasn't fast. Like he was like pretty spunky to begin with, but when we got him back, he wasn't the same dog. And that's all I'll say about that. He still ended up being an okay dog, but he wasn't what we wanted. We like had this vision of this dog. You know, if you think back to that story I told you, like a dog that's going to go bust after, it's going to go, you know, long way if it needs to, and it's going to be fast. And this dog was fast before it left, but it was just slow after. It didn't have the passion and the love for what it was doing. And that's not what we wanted. So we actually, in the process of this, I don't know the exact timeline, but if I remember correctly, we had actually already, because we kind of had experience with dogs before, we were gonna, we had already ordered 2 more or put a deposit down on 2 more. And so, so here's the thing, when we go into things, we just go. Yeah. I mean, this we're gonna give it all.
I've noticed that theme already a little bit.
yeah,
but I like it.
Yeah. I'm kind of a gung-ho kind of guy. That's just what we like to do. But anyway, so when we got the dog back, we're like, well, we're not going to be able to do the same thing here, because that's not going to pan out like what we want. So that's kind of what started us on the journey of, well, we got to train the dog ourselves now, because I mean, we'd spent a lot of money. I think if you added it all up between the vet bills and everything, it was like maybe we had $7,500 in that dog. And that was back quite a while ago.
Yeah.
You equate that to now, that would be a good bit more. So we're going to have to do something here. I think my mom was also getting a little uneasy about how much we were spending on this whole shebang too. So that's what got us started into it. And honestly, what got us into it. And this dog was fine. I took him hunting. I had his first dove retrieve. I took him duck hunting, got him on a few ducks. He just wasn't what we were looking for. And we ended up selling him to a guy who wanted a dog that would go hunt maybe 2 times a year on a little pond behind his house. And we got him into the right home. And then we got our new breeding stock in that we were going to work with, because we also imported a female from overseas over the pond so that we could have a litter of puppies and recoup some of this cost.
That's interesting. That's awesome, man. So
that's how we got into it. We weren't trying to get into this. We were just trying to have a good duck dog.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like I mean, I know you've done a good job of transferring kind of that experience now. Obviously, like what I love about Cornerstone is that it's this community, and like Dave and I can really relate to that, because we're trying to create like this community, and that's just, people need that. Like, I mean, yes, I love the training and I love the videos. Like, it's been awesome, but the community itself, and I know you guys talk about this all the time, but the community itself is what really, I think the huge value is there, where people really do like lean into each other. Like, it's this place where you can be vulnerable. Like, everybody's making mistakes, like as handlers, you know, and it's just been really cool what you built in a place where like people aren't going to make those same mistakes that you made. So like, as you're telling the story, I can see like pieces of a Cornerstone in there, you know, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, at that time we didn't even, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're good. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, at that time, honestly, Cornerstone wasn't even like, I think, in our minds yet. We were still thinking, okay, get a duck dog, get it to what we want it to be. Mm-hmm. And we kind of set on our journey to learn to do that. So we bought every book and DVD. Well, yeah, back then. So it was all DVDs back then, no online stuff other than what may have been on YouTube. And we got every book and resource that we could get a hold of. And we just went out and started training, and I would go and try something. My first initial idea was, okay, let me just follow this to a T and use everything from this one resource. Mm-hmm. But I quickly found that a lot of the resources weren't put together in what I would call completeness. There was things missing, or things didn't exactly work like I would hope they would. It was just constant. It was a constant struggle. But then what I found is, if I started mixing everything together and started learning and pulling the best from each, things started coming together. So fast forward a little bit over some time. So I kind of got a hold on it. We had a dog kind of where we wanted it to be, then had another dog where we wanted it to be. Then we had our first litter of puppies. This is probably a couple or so years in after we've trained these dogs. So these dogs are probably 2 or so now. And then we've got this female that's having its first litter of puppies. And when people would come and pick up the puppies, they would ask us, how did you get your dog to be there? Or how will you train my dog? And so at that time, we're like, well, we kind of would recommend a bunch of different ideas, and that wasn't really panning out. People weren't taking that, because you had to go buy this and you had to go buy that, and you had to try to like digest all this info yourself. But I was taking dogs in because I wanted to train dogs for people because it was fun and I enjoyed it. And so as that journey kind of continued, we continued to hone those skills and hone our craft and learn how, what works the best, what doesn't work the best. And it was a lot of rough days out there figuring that out. And I believe this. I mean, you can believe this. When we figured out something that worked a lot better, we would test it on all the client dogs. We ran about 20 dogs at a time, anywhere from 15 to 20. We would test it and see what's going to work the best. And we kind of got our own little method built. And that's kind of the roots of Cornerstone, but that isn't even really where it got started, other than the idea was in our mind when people were asking, how do you do what you do? So that's when the idea was kind of there. But we were also a part of something called the British Field Trial Society of America. And that doesn't really have wings anymore, or at this time. It doesn't mean it won't in the future. But basically it was, since we're running UK dogs, British dogs, we're trying to participate in that style of test, which is honestly, just look up the IGL on YouTube or go and buy some DVDs on it. It is incredible to see what those dogs do. It's worth watching. But we kind of were getting into that. The guy that we bought our first lab from invited us to over to a trial, and that's actually how we met Barton. He was hosting his first trial. So we built a relationship with Barton. So at that first trial, we started that relationship. But long story short, if you look down the road a couple of years and we were trying to get this organization going, we invited a lot of people out. I think we had gathered probably 20, 30 people. We had 15 dogs running. And what we found is that when we were trying to run these trials is that a lot of the dogs just weren't meeting the standard. And people were getting upset because the dogs couldn't meet that standard because everyone was struggling to get their dogs there. I say everyone, a lot of our dogs, and I'm not bragging, but we were able to get our dogs to where we wanted them to be at this point. And we were trying to encourage people along the way. And so when we figured that out, we realized this thing is never going to take off. And how are we going to ever have speaking of community, that's really where it all came from, is we were trying to develop a community here around a sport we loved and around hunting and around that. And so that's kind of where the idea of CGA came from people asking us, hey, how did you do that? And then when we're trying to pull together our community and get everybody together to get dogs to a high level, and that was a little bit of a struggle, then that's kind of where that vision sparked, and the idea of, hey, let's make something that can enable people to get to where they need to be with their dogs. And not, I mean, we had one guy, what a great guy he is. He was crying because his dog messed up, and that just ate us up, because he got knocked out of the trial because his dog, and that happens my dogs have been knocked out of a trial. It's happened, but it's, that is just a really personal thing when you put so much passion and time into that dog and things don't go exactly like you want. And so that kind of was really eating at us, and especially my dad is the one who had the original vision of CGA and wanted to create that. And I was on board because I wanted to be in every part of this thing that I could.
Yeah. It's so cool to hear different, entrepreneur stories and how their businesses came about. It's, for you, it was just a passion, and you saw something that you felt like you could improve upon. And then all of a sudden, a business is born. And that's really cool. I love hearing those stories. One question that I had is, and I know we'll continue with your story and get back into it, but a theme that keeps coming up is this idea of community, and also community. You've used the word camaraderie. I think those can kind of go hand in hand. You had that when you were first started deer hunting, you kind of lost it a little bit. Then you had it back when you first started duck hunting. And then that was a big theme when you created Cornerstone. My question to you is, and that's something that a lot of people in the outdoor world and hunting world use is like camaraderie, the camaraderie with hunting. So my question to you is, why has that been so important to you, and why is it so important to you today?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I love that you're hitting on that, because that is actually what we're hitting on here. Relationships are everything. If you really think about it in life, that's all we have is our relationships. You can add everything up you have, but it means nothing if you don't have good relationships. And it's not just, it's relationships with people. If you think about hunting, the outdoors, you think about everything, it all is going to boil back down to how we interact with what's around us and how we interact with the people around us. And let's go ahead and get this out there, because I am excited to be on this podcast because we get to talk about faith too.
Yeah, man.
That's a big part of our life. I actually had, this is the perfect time to bring it up. I actually had my Bible here, a scripture, and I think a lot of us have heard it, but it's John 1. It says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him, all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. So without him, nothing was made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And so just that scripture, that idea of, when you're asking me like relationships, camaraderie, if everybody thinks about that one way or another, it's all tied back to, our creation story, how we were created. We were born to be honestly in connection and relationship with people and with God. And so I say all that to say, like, this connection, a big part of it is relationships. And, we're not, everything we do, if you look right there at that verse, it just says everything is in him. So you want to find your purpose, you want to find your life, you find it in him. And so if we want to get a little deeper than just the surface of my story, the surface of that story, the depths of it is, finding our purpose in God and connecting to him and taking, the word says, take your everyday ordinary life and use it for his glory. Right. And that's kind of what we try to do and what we want to do and everything. It doesn't mean you have to be out there preaching all the time. I mean, just the way you live, the biggest thing anyone can ever do is just the way they live, the way they act, the words they use, how they interact with people. That can represent Christ more than anything. Is just that. But so what you're saying there, camaraderie, relationships, that's the big root of it, is connection. I think that's super valuable.
Yeah. One follow up to that, and then Corey, and I'm sure you have tons of questions here, but you talked about relationship with people, but also relationship with God as well. And I found, for me personally, like, I have a relationship with Jesus, right? It's not just, it's a back and forth, it's an ongoing relationship. And one of the best ways that I've found to learn more about him is to spend time in the things that he's made, which is his creation. Like, that's where I get like a deep connection with him, as I'm experiencing the things that he's made and he's given us to enjoy. So for you, how does the outdoors and being outdoors and hunting, how does that affect your relationship with him?
Yeah, that's a good question. So just thinking on that, I mean, kind of like what we're hitting on here, everything in life finds it's so God made everything and he made it for himself. So what, in my mind, that's saying is that everything will eventually draw you to him if your eyes are open to it. I was thinking back when I was preparing for this to jump on with you guys, I was thinking about these stories, and just like, let's go back to when I was like 4 or 5 years old out there with my dad, and just thinking about walking with him. And so I was thinking about this because I have my little girl now. And so she was out there training dogs with me, and she doesn't know everything that's going on. I mean, she's just about to turn 1. So I'm trying to point everything out and show her, about life, and show her about the dogs. And she gets so excited to go with me to train. But if we didn't have, like, if we weren't willing to like look and see what's right in front of us, in fact, a lot of times everything is right in front of you all the time and you just don't even recognize it. And so that's what I'm trying to say here is, I think since God made everything and he made it for his purposes, I think if being in the outdoors for me is just opening up my eyes and seeing what his creation is and how that draws me back to him. Everything in creation reflects his glory in one way or another. It's just, you have to be open to it. You can open the fridge and look for something and not see it all day long. And then my wife comes in there, it's right there. Yep. It's just what you're looking for. And if your eyes are open or not, it's a big thing if you're open to it. And so that's what being in outdoors for me is just everything like ties its purpose to him, especially the dogs. And there's a whole lot of just parallels and relationships between training a dog and relationship with God. It's a pretty incredible thing.
Well, you just segued right into my next question. Literally, that was literally going to be. So you and I'm trying to figure out how to articulate it. So and I don't want to say specifically the e-collar itself, like that's like an example maybe of it, but like your method of training is 100% about the relationship between yourself and your dog. And again, and you and I have talked about e-collars in the past. It's like, we're not against e-collars. It's, if you build a relationship with the dog and there's a lot of trust there, you don't need the e-collar in a lot of cases. In some cases you might, but it also takes time to build relationships also. And that's why it might take you a little longer, right? Like it's going to take us maybe it's 56 weeks of training of online videos, but it's not 56 weeks. Like it's going to be a lot longer, and it's ongoing forever. It's a relationship you're building with your dog. And I told you this, like I was in the hospital, I had COVID this past year. And I mean, I was down and out for like 8 weeks and I didn't do a thing with Charlie, and I had to like rebuild my relationship with him. And that it really set us back. Like we didn't hunt this year, and that's fine. Like you and I talked about that, and I had a mental struggle with that, but I came to the grips of this is the best thing to do. But the relationship side of things, and what you just said is in your training, when you're training dogs, what are some of those parallels with your relationship and with Faith, with the dog?
Yeah. So I love what we're chatting about there. That was definitely something, because like as the first question that you asked me there, and then this question, just, you can see how God works and everything. But when it comes to relating to dogs and the way we train, I'm glad you brought that up. So what I'm about to say, if you do train a different way than we train, I'm not against you in any way or against the way you train. I'm just for the way that I train. So I train the way I train for a very specific reason. I believe it's the best. I believe it's going to be the most effective for my dogs. But as far as comparing methods and kind of the way we train, so when we got into things, we kind of did not go the force fetch route to begin with. A lot of the people over in the UK, that's where a lot of our roots come from, is British style training. That we also have blended tons of American training in there, so we do both. But we kind of do our own thing. We made our own thing. We pioneered our own way. But over there, they're not using e-collars. I think they're actually outlawed. So, but they're also not really using force fetch, which is so force fetch. Let me just get beyond that. Let's just call it this: force first, or a force approach to training, or coercing your dog to do what you want to do. But basically, your dog has no other choice. It's going to do what you want it to do. And I'm absolutely in agreement that your dog has to do what you say it's to do. It can save its life. It's imperative. I definitely believe in that. Like the dog's under your command. You're the commander. Your dog has to do what you want it to do. But I believe in going about and getting to that end destination of my dog is going to listen to me and do what I say the first time, every time. I believe in going about it a different way than what you call the mainstream way. And, the way we train, and it's just a little bit different. So we, instead of kind of, going through obedience and then what's called formalizing it, or basically layering it with pressure, teaching your dog to turn pressure off, pressure on, pressure off, we go through a different process of what we call shaping, or teaching our dogs how to learn or problem solve for themselves. So I want my dog to not just act. I want it to problem solve and think through things. Now, this has been really cool on the hunts that I've been on in all kinds of different situations, because you have a dog that thinks for itself, but it also trusts you. So, that can be dangerous. If your dog thinks for itself too much, it may just blow you off and go and do whatever it wants to do. But your dog needs to be willing to be able to think for itself, but it also needs to know that you know what's best. And if it will trust you, you're going to get it to where it needs to go to get the bird and get back to you. So when we go through that process, we use a process early on with positive reinforcement. We're utilizing a clicker and treat to reinforce that. We actually don't even give any commands or anything when we first start out it all starts on the place board. We just stand by the board. We let the dog touch the board randomly, and we'll click and treat. So we'll do that again. And what that does is the dog learns is that, okay, every time it touches this board, I'm going to get rewarded. And so that process literally starts and ingrains early on, that once the correlation's built and the dog learns that it's coming from you and it learns to please you, then from then on, you've got a dog that wants to do what you want it to do, as long as you continue that journey throughout. And so that's a little bit different than kind of the contrast of other forms of training. But as far as that goes, so you go through that whole process, like you said, you spend your time with your dog. You spend a year or so training that dog and going through that process. And then you've got a dog that trusts you. And when you finally get to that stage, your dog's going to do what you want it to do because it knows that you know best. And so I think about that in like our relationship with God and relationship with people too. Honestly, you just can't force people to do things. If you want somebody to do something, or if you need something from somebody, it's not going to be, hey, go do this right now. I mean, if someone does that to me, that's going to turn me off real quick. Right. And honestly, God, isn't that way either. Like sometimes like people go through seasons in their life and you're thinking, well, where are you, God? I mean, I haven't heard you, but he's there all along. He's kind of nudging you along the way. Maybe he's standing there waiting on you to just look to him and kind of be still and be quiet and look to him for his direction. And when I'm out there training dogs, it's just so amazing how God will speak to me. It's like sometimes my dog's not listening. It's blowing me off and it's just acting like a fool. I'm thinking, man, this is frustrating. But what I have found is that when that happens, one of the best things to do is just to sit back and wait. Let the dog do whatever it wants to do. If you're gonna screw around over there, you're not gonna get anything. But when you turn and look at me, I will direct you in the path that you should go, and I will get you to where you need to go. Mm. And so it's like that. When I'm speaking of that, I'm speaking hand signals of dogs. But it's like when I will go through that process, it's like I've been out in the field crying before, just because it's like God has spoken to me. Mm. In those moments, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Just how you can use a dog to connect me back to you. And it's just, I've seen that before. And God's like, hey, just know that I'm here. Just look to me. I will get you to where you need to go. But the only way to do that is, if you think to our dogs, we're on a hunt where, whatever we're doing, there's loads of distractions around. There's loads of different smells. There's loads of different things that could get them off of track. They could get them off of the path that you want them to go. And that is our journey in life. There's so many things that can get us off path in it. There's so many things that are enticing. There's so many things that are not just enticing. There's so many problems we have in life that can, if your focus becomes on that, whatever your focus is, that's the direction you're going. If my dog is on a retrieve, but it smells something and all of a sudden it's smelling it and that smell becomes overwhelming to it, before you know it, that dog is following its nose right towards where that smell is and completely away from where I want them to go. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I just think it's incredible the way God designed dogs and the way all that correlates back to our relationship with him. Because you can, if you're not in perfect step and in perfect tune, then it's not going to look beautiful. But one of the most beautiful things, in my opinion, is when you've got a dog that is so locked in on you that it does everything literally instantaneous. If you blow your whistle to tell it to stop, it pops and it's looking at you like, okay, where am I going next? No matter the distraction, if there's kids playing around, whatever it may be. When I was trying to get my wife to marry me back when we were dating, I took my dog out. We went to this place called Veterans Park, and this is like one of the busiest parks in Birmingham. There's people everywhere. And so, this time she didn't really know what went into training a dog. Yeah. So we go out there and I take my dog off lead, and there's probably 300 people in this park, and there's probably 100 dogs. Everybody brings their dog there. I go and set up a T-drill out in the middle of all these people, and I'm just handling my dog. She's locked in on me. This dog actually has passed away now. Such a great dog, but she was so locked in on me, doing everything I said for it to do. And Abigail, I was like, oh man, that's so cool. And then she actually ended up filming 52 plus, and now she knows what it actually takes to get a dog to that level. And, but just no matter what, I think the correlation and connection of just, you can look at other aspects of life too, hunting, fishing, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. But I think God is always trying to reveal himself to you in some way or another. And so that's why I get so passionate about this is, I believe, the outdoor industry is definitely just like any other industry. There's darkness in there. And I think we're supposed to be a light. And anybody listening to this that's not aware of it, I've heard, I've talked to a lot of people in this industry that have gone to church. They've had what's called church hurt, or they've had someone that's offended them, whatever it may be. But people are going to hurt you. Jesus says, forgive 7 times 70. That's a lot, and that's per day. So basically, he says, forgive without limit is essentially what he's saying, if you really look at it. And so if anybody's experienced that, I think the best thing to do is go straight, get out in the woods and just let God speak to you. I mean, it's just amazing how he will speak to you in different ways.
Man, that's so good. It's such a reminder too, like of just patience, as I think, and we're all guilty of it, but like I know so many times, especially like when I was trying to like figure things out again with Charlie, like after COVID, like I caught myself just like nonstop, like because I was frustrated, and then of course he's not we're not connected and stuff, and just be patient, that just let him do what he's going to do, and he'll figure it out, and if you have that relationship, then he's going to look at you, that's a good reminder, man.
Yeah, I love the parallel there. I mean, there's so many parallels between like what you just said and faith, but the parallel of, you talked briefly about kind of and I don't know anything about dog training, so take this with a grain of salt, but you talked about like, kind of the people who can train dogs and kind of force them to do something. And then the other route is kind of building that relationship and then allowing them to choose. The same, that parallel is the biggest one that I've seen with our faith, right? Like if our relationship with Christ is being forced, what relationship is there, right? It has to be us choosing to do that. And that's when that relationship builds. That's where there's true love involved. Well, yeah, God showed the ultimate love for us, but we need to be showing that back to him if we want to have a relationship, and we have to choose that. And so that parallel between training dogs and what you're talking about is really paints a beautiful picture of what that looks like. Really that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
I mean, it's like God just did it intentionally. I mean, it's honestly like new covenant. I don't know what the lingo is for different people in different churches, but for ours, new covenant, old covenant, just look in the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament. You look, everybody's has all these burdens. They're trying to follow the law. It's impossible to do it. You can't do it just because one mistake, it's done. And you got to go through that whole process of making a sacrifice and all that. Man, that just takes forever. And then you look at the New Testament, it's like, well, God sees that we cannot do this. So he empowers us through Jesus, through what he did on the cross. And then he empowers us by his Holy Spirit to what he calls write his law in our hearts. And it's no longer a burden. It's no longer something that you're trying to do on your own. It's more, he's already done it. You just have to walk in that. And so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. It can be a burden, or it can be, it can be a joy. And that's one of the other things too, about the dogs here. So when the dog is doing it because it loves to do it, and the dog is completely locked in to you, it's like perfect harmony. It's perfect unity. Everything's working together as it should. And it's not really a burden. The dog learns that actually it finds its purpose in you as the handler, because you are the only way that dog gets to fulfill its purpose of being a retriever and going out and picking its ducks, picking its birds, picking its retrieves. So it's just, I think he just did it intentionally. I think everything, it's like, it's so perfect how it comes together. It's kind of crazy. But I remember the first time as I was going through learning to train these dogs, I remember being out there, and every time I learned something new, it was almost like a new revelation, a new realization of like God speaking to me, like, hey, this is the same, like you're out here with this dog. Look at how y'all kind of got on the same page. This is the same thing with you and me. You just have to trust me. And if you trust me, then I will get you where you need to go.
You were talking about like how a dog can catch the scent of like a rabbit or something like that, but it was making me think of like all the distractions our life has right now, like social media, and like how distracted we can easily get, and how we can fill our heads headspace with the things that don't need to be. Dave and I were talking about that today, actually. It's like there's so many things we can fill our head with. Gas prices, like how many times have you seen people just post about gas prices? Like, I get it, but I can't necessarily control gas prices anyway. Distractions are around us, and it's just like that for a dog, and those distractions will always be there, right? But like our distractions will always be there too. But as we grow our relationship with Christ and we focus on him and we spend time in the word, those distractions are easier to dismiss, right?
Yeah.
Like we're intentional about it. So kind of like,
and oftentimes we think that to have joy, like we need to follow our own path, just like the dog, like you're talking about with the dogs. Like they think that, okay, so, at times, well, I need to go do this or I do this, and that's where I'm going to find my purpose and my joy. But then when we come back to you, and we, on the parallel, when we come back to Christ and really follow what his plan is, that's where we find our purpose and our joy, just like the dogs do, which is really cool. It's really cool. I did have a question. So one thing that we like to talk about on this podcast is just how people in different situations overcome like adversity in tough situations. And I know that is certainly the case when you're training a dog. I know Corey has gone through some of that, and I'm sure you have as well, where things just, they don't always go to plan. It's not always perfect. So for you,
rarely.
What? Yeah, right.
Lately.
So what? How do you? And this is just a theme that we want to keep harping on with everybody, whether it's whitetail hunting or turkey hunting or training dogs or whatever, because these things can not only be applied to those specific situations, but they can be applied to our life. So as you're coming across this adversity and things that aren't going well, how do you approach them? How do you overcome them and continue to push toward the goal?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I love that because that's something we all, man, I think everybody faces that. I mean, yeah, if one adversity is people being afraid, I mean, everybody, I mean, I think if at this point, if the economy kind of going wild hasn't crossed someone's mind, no matter what, I mean, from a business owner perspective, and we have employees, you know, I understand their perspective too. So it's like, you know, that's one level of adversity, but I mean, this podcast will be evergreen. So who knows what will be going on down the road when someone's listening to this. Adversity. I think what I'm getting at there, I think our first reaction, most people's to adversity is a few different things. And I don't know every reaction. I think one of the first reactions may be fear. It may be to flee. It may be to run. It may be to shut down. It may be to overreact. It may be to just knee-jerk react and immediately just try to overcome it immediately. I think back to this, like when I think about our members. So we've got around 5,000 members at this point in time that use our all over the US. That's kind of our primary target is the United States of America, but all over the world too, but mainly in the US. And I think back to when I see them go through challenges. And the reason I say that is because, like, obviously we've laid out this path to success. And if you follow it and you put your whole heart and soul into it, and you've got a dog that's got what it takes, you have a good chance of having success. The main thing is your willingness to commit through the challenges, because as Corey can attest, I'm sure, because I know where he's at right now, what week he's on in 52 plus, which is one of our products. I know he's already had some challenges, mainly because of what I talked to him. But if I hadn't talked to him, I could go ahead and tell you probably what challenges he's already had and how he's felt. I literally understand how our people feel because I number one, I train dogs. So I get reminded every time I go train them how everybody feels, because we all have these feelings. But I think the biggest form of overcoming adversity would be honestly just faith and unwavering faith. So I've seen a lot of people go through our course and get to a certain point, and I can see that their faith is wavering, because it's when you're out there and your dog is just absolutely just screwing up and you don't feel like your things are going right. And I can tell you, like, in that process, it's actually going in the direction you need it to go. You just don't think it is because it doesn't look like it is. You have to have faith and you have to keep pushing. You have to keep trying. You have to keep coming back out. Because if you let adversity just shut you down and just quit and go try something else or go to a different direction to maybe find another solution, you can end up way further off course than you could. I have seen it happen. I've actually talked with members that have done that. They've gone off, they hit a certain point, someone got in their ear and they're telling them, hey, that Cornerstone, you shouldn't be trusting that. Go do this instead. Then they come back to us a few months later and their dog is in a total wreck. And I'm like, and I hate that. I really do. So here's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to step way back further than where you were, way, way, way back to the beginning, go back through the process, rebuild that trust, and then keep working through. And so I say a lot to say that is a tendency is when you get into a storm and things start getting tough, that I think a tendency for everybody is to, like, all right, we may need to jump ship because this thing may go down. I think that's just a natural reaction. But that's not what Jesus did there on the boat. He calmed the storm. So, like, I think just in life and overcoming adversity, for me, it comes back to faith, trusting the process, trusting that things will work out. I always have a saying, everything's going to be okay. it's always going to be okay because you're here for a reason. It's all going to be okay one way or another. It may now, I mean, we can screw things up. We can make decisions in our life. There's consequences in the choices we have in life. So we have to be super careful. We can make a decision and it can be literally life altering. So we have to be as careful as we can. But I would say the biggest thing to ever come in adversity for me is just faith that it'll work out and not overreacting and just trying to, honestly, the truth is just press into God and pray. I'll tell you, if anyone wants to know one of my biggest secrets to dog training and having successful dogs, it's I pray and I ask for wisdom and I stop when things don't go well. I literally will stop. I say, God, I don't know what to do right now, but I just put this in your hands and I just ask that you'll help me. And then it seems like it just seems to work out pretty much after that, because I just stop and acknowledge God in everything I do. And when I don't do that, and I don't always do that, and when I don't do that, things definitely don't go as well. So that's my answer for adversity is faith and go to God. No matter what business, no matter what you're in life, no matter what it is, that's just been my experience in life is every time I go to him, I get an answer, and it may not be the answer I want, but he leads me in the way that I should go.
It's so good, man. We are coming up on an hour. I feel like we packed so much wisdom.
Packed it in.
I mean, you've been awesome. I knew you would be, but I mean, it's been really cool to kind of hear your story.
Appreciate you guys for letting me chat on this. I don't get to talk about this all the time as in depth as we're going here, but considering the context of this podcast, I kind of wanted to go all in here and just open up my heart and kind of share with you what's on it.
And man, when it comes to I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, and when it comes to relationships, it's like, you and I have never met in person, but I feel like I really know you. We don't talk a ton. I mean, we talk every now and then, but like I can't wait to meet you in person and meet the rest of our Cornerstone fam in a couple weeks in Alabama.
It's coming up quick.
I know, man. Great. You ready?
Oh yeah, we were out there last week picking up. So our land is pretty rocky. Yeah. So the last year last fall, the member weekend, our tractor went down like 2 days before, and we still had a lot to cut. So we finally got it fixed. We got a few areas cut, and then it went down again, and we just had to let the rough end drag on a couple of those spots. But so we went out there and picked up rocks. Since the cover is down now, it's turning into spring now. It's about to grow up again, and we won't be able to see the rocks. So we went out there and picked up a lot of rocks and moved them out of the field so that we can cut them without breaking the tractor.
Well, we appreciate, I'll just answer for everyone that's coming. We appreciate the work you're doing, and I'm excited to be there and meet everyone. And I was bummed I missed last year, but couldn't make it work, or last time you did it, but I'm excited to be there, man. We're excited. So
good to have you.
Yeah. So I have one final question. This is going to be a doozy. This is a big one. So
oh boy,
make sure you're sitting down for this one. So as you get to know Corey and I, we obviously do a lot of hunting together, and we have in the past. And you would think that certain things would take priority in what we do in our hunting, whether it's kind of the X's and O's, the equipment, where we're going, all of these things. But none of those things are true. There's one thing that stands above the rest, and that is the snacks that we bring. So we need to know, what is your go-to snack or snacks that you would bring on your hunt? Most important question of the podcast.
Man, that is a serious question there. It is. I mean, I'm serious. Like, that is one of the biggest things. You forget that, and you're in trouble. So that's funny. My wife is big on snacks. I'm not super big on them, but when I go hunting, I have to have at least something, and I will buy some sort of granola bar of some sort. I don't care what it is. I just want something that's going to actually sustain me a bit. So one thing about me, through all the filming of 52 Plus and all the Complete Gundog Academy, I've been filming things for like 4 years now. Is how long it took us to film all that. Maybe 5. I don't know now at this point. Well, actually, that's how long we've been offering since 2016. So we were filming back in like 2013 and 2014 is when we started it, and we finally offered in 2016. Where I'm going with that is snacks are so important, because we would be out there on shoot, and I would just lose it. I would just lose all my fuel. And I'm like, we have to have snacks. And we're like, we don't have budget for snacks. You know what I'm saying? So now when we go hunting, I make sure that I have just granola is my go-to. I got to have something that's going to at least fill me up a little bit. And then on every hunting trip that I go on the way there and on the way back, I stop at a Love's or somewhere like that, and I get the s'mores Pop-Tarts. And I'll just give me one pack.
Yeah,
that is my travel snack for on the way there and back. It's the s'mores Pop-Tarts.
Now we're talking.
Now you're speaking the language.
See, now I'm gonna have to go to the store. I mean, it's already almost 10 o'clock. I'm gonna have to go to the store and get some s'mores Pop-Tarts because it's just can't hear that. They are.
Yeah.
Do you now? Okay. Follow up. I don't want to go too far, but are you eating them just cold, or you toasting them up somehow?
Yeah, I'm just gonna eat them cold on the way. Now, if there's most hunting camps I go to aren't really equipped for culinary arts. So
Sure.
like a toaster for your Pop-Tarts.
Sure.
So we're I'm pretty much eating them cold. The big thing is just don't leave them in the truck, because when I'm going hunting, it's normally 20 degrees, and the worst thing that's ever happened is go out there. I left my snack bag, my blind bag and snack bag. I've had that happen. My snacks are frozen and my shotgun shells are frozen. And that is a bad day right there. That's not a good day, dude.
That's not good.
Wait, I do have, I promise this will be the last question. Has Violet ever had a Pop-Tart?
She's had she's had the corner. So I'll eat the Pop-Tart. I'll eat the middle of it, and I'll leave a little corner for her, a little corner piece, and give it to her. She kind of, she wasn't sure what she thought about it. She did eat it there a little bit.
She's not a snacker. That's okay. I mean, that's why she's so trim.
Yeah, I tried to give her some pizza on one of our hunts when fortunately we had Casey's Pizza out there in Kansas. Fantastic. One of the best.
Heard.
I mean, that is a lifesaver out there when it's 20 degrees and you're just cold and you're like barely hanging on and you're trying to, I mean, I'm not a super big guy, so I don't feel like I have a lot of like excess fuel to for my body to eat off. So that's what I'm saying. I'll go hungry. So when someone's bringing that Casey's Pizza out in the blind, I'm stoked, because at that point I'm serious. I'm having trouble focusing because I'm so hungry at that point.
I like it.
Oh, it's like the best way to wrap a podcast. I think this is the best thing we've ever done, is talk about food at the end. But it also makes me
great now. So now I'm hungry. I don't know what we're gonna. If only someone could run to the gas station.
Oh,
that's right.
Give me some Pop-Tarts.
Well, we're happy to have you, man, and thanks again, Dave. You want to close us down in prayer tonight?
Yeah, I'd love to.
We'll close us down in prayer, and then we'll make sure we put all the Cornerstone Gundog info in the descriptions of the podcast, and again, just really appreciate all you're doing there, and just appreciate you as a friend, man. And
we appreciate you. I really do appreciate the kind words, and thank y'all both for having me on. Dave, thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be able to speak and share on this. So I appreciate you guys a lot.
Yeah. Let me pray quick and then we'll wrap. Jesus, thank you for this time. Thank you just for Josh and his heart, just to share about his faith. Continue to lift up Cornerstone. Just pray that you will bless that organization, that they will just be a light for you in this world that just seems to get darker by the day. But organizations like Cornerstone and guys like Josh are certainly a light in this world. So we just continue to lift them up. Thank you again for just this conversation has been so centered around our faith and the things that truly matter. We lift all these things up to you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks again, man. Thanks everyone for watching tonight and or today, whenever you're watching this and listening. And Josh, I'm sure we'll have you on again soon, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Love to, and look forward to seeing you.
See you.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with everything happening at Rooted Outdoors.